There are individuals who do not experience love as a simple emotion, but as a cosmic force that rearranges their inner world. These rare souls feel everything intensely. They do not skim the surface of life, they descend into its depths. From early on, they sense that they are different. They think differently, love differently, and suffer differently. While others move from relationship to relationship with ease, these individuals encounter patterns of loss, misunderstanding, and betrayal. It begins to feel as if the universe itself is orchestrating their isolation. But in the language of Jungian psychology, isolation is not punishment. It is initiation. The rare soul is not being rejected, they are being refined. Before the right person enters their life, the rare soul must first confront the shadow. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow as the hidden part of the psyche, the suppressed fears, desires, insecurities, and wounds that we refuse to face. Most people project their shadow onto others, blaming partners for the chaos within themselves. But rare souls are forced into circumstances where projection fails. They attract mirrors instead of distractions. They encounter partners who trigger abandonment wounds, jealousy, control issues, and deep insecurities. Every heartbreak is not random, it is a psychological excavation. The universe seems cruel, yet it is surgical. Each painful encounter strips away illusions about love, forcing the rare soul to look inward rather than outward. During this process, loneliness becomes their greatest teacher. While others fear solitude, rare souls are cornered into it. Friendships fade, romantic connections collapse, even family bonds feel distant. It feels like exile. But exile has a purpose. In solitude, the noise of external validation disappears. The rare soul begins to confront uncomfortable truths. They see how they overgave. They recognize how they tolerated less than they deserved. They begin to understand their unconscious patterns, how childhood wounds shaped their adult attractions. This stage feels like darkness, yet darkness is where vision sharpens. In the absence of companionship, they begin forming a relationship with themselves. Then comes the ego death. This is the stage that breaks most people. The rare soul experiences a loss so profound that it shatters their identity. Perhaps it is a betrayal that destroys their trust. Perhaps it is a sudden abandonment that leaves them questioning their worth. Whatever the form, it dismantles the illusion of who they thought they were. Jung described individuation as the process of becoming whole, and wholeness requires the destruction of false selves. The rare soul must release the need to be chosen in order to feel valuable. They must detach from the fantasy that love will rescue them. The universe removes every dependency until they stand emotionally independent. At this midpoint of their journey, something unsettling occurs. The patterns repeat. But this time, the rare soul sees them clearly. They begin to notice that certain types of people are drawn to their light. Manipulators, emotionally unavailable partners, narcissistic personalities, wounded individuals seeking healing without responsibility. It feels as though the universe is testing them deliberately. Will they fall back into familiar dynamics, or will they break the cycle? Suspense builds here because this is where destiny shifts. Many rare souls almost return to old habits. The temptation is strong. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar peace. But if they choose differently, a transformation begins. They stop chasing. They stop convincing. They stop shrinking themselves to fit someone else's limitations. Instead of seeking completion through another, they cultivate inner alignment. Their standards rise, not from arrogance, but from clarity. They no longer desire intensity without stability. They no longer romanticize chaos. The shadow is integrated, not suppressed. They acknowledge their fears without letting those fears control their choices, and slowly, almost mysteriously, their energy changes. What the universe does before sending the right person is not magical in the way fairy tales describe. It is psychological alchemy. The rare soul must become the person who can sustain the love they desire. Without this preparation, they would sabotage it. Without this refinement, they would cling to it. The loneliness, the heartbreak, the betrayal, and the silence are not signs of being forgotten. They are signs of being prepared. The universe does not rush rare souls into alignment. It strengthens them first, because what is coming requires emotional depth, self-awareness, and the courage to love without losing oneself. The transformation does not become easier after awareness begins. In fact, it becomes more intense. Once the rare soul recognizes their patterns, the universe seems to increase the pressure. Situations arise that look almost identical to past heartbreaks, but with subtle differences. A new connection appears, charming and magnetic, carrying the scent of destiny. The chemistry feels undeniable. The conversations are deep. The timing feels perfect. And yet, beneath the surface, there is a faint echo of something familiar. This is not coincidence. This is the final examination of the psyche. The universe is not asking whether they can fall in love. It is asking whether they can remain conscious while doing so. In this stage, the rare soul feels torn between intuition and desire. Desire whispers, "This feels good, do not question it." Intuition whispers, "Look deeper." Dark psychology reveals that unconscious attraction is often a repetition of unresolved wounds. We are magnetized not by what is healthy, but by what is familiar. The rare soul begins to see how trauma bonds disguise themselves as passion. The intense eye contact, the rapid emotional intimacy, the promises of forever spoken too soon. It feels like fate, but it may simply be the nervous system recognizing an old battlefield. The suspense grows because this time, the rare soul is aware. Awareness makes every decision heavier. The universe does something subtle here. It withdraws signs and clarity. There is no dramatic disaster, no obvious betrayal. Instead, there is ambiguity, mixed signals, inconsistent effort, emotional hot and cold behavior. This psychological tension is deliberate. It forces the rare soul to choose self-respect over fantasy. In the past, they would have overanalyzed, overextended, and overgiven. They would have tried to prove their worth. Now they are faced with silence. And in that silence, an uncomfortable question forms. Am I willing to walk away even if this feels like love? This is the true initiation. Not losing someone, but choosing oneself. At the center of this darkness lies the confrontation with abandonment fear. Jung understood that what we fear losing often controls us. The rare soul must sit with the anxiety of not being chosen. They must resist the urge to chase reassurance. This feels unnatural. It feels almost cruel to their own heart. But something powerful happens when they refuse to abandon themselves for someone else's attention. Their nervous system begins to stabilize. They realize that longing does not equal compatibility. They understand that intensity is not intimacy. And slowly the illusion begins to crack. Then comes a moment that feels like fate turning its head. The connection either fades away or reveals its instability fully. The rare soul watches what once seemed extraordinary dissolve into ordinariness. It is painful, but not devastating. That is the difference. The old version of them would have shattered. The new version observes. There is grief, yes, but there is also dignity. And in that dignity lies power. The universe was never trying to deprive them. It was measuring their growth. Would they cling to illusion, or would they trust their evolution? Something shifts internally after this choice. The rare soul no longer feels desperate for timing to align. They no longer measure their worth by relationship status. Instead of asking, when will the right person arrive? They begin asking, am I living in alignment with who I have become? Their energy stabilizes. Their boundaries are no longer emotional reactions but calm decisions. They stop romanticizing potential. They require consistency. This is where the archetype of the wounded lover transforms into the sovereign individual. Not hardened, not cold, but integrated. And yet, just when they feel steady, the universe becomes quiet. No dramatic romance, no overwhelming connection, just peace. This peace feels unfamiliar, almost suspicious. For a moment, the rare soul wonders if something is missing. They were so accustomed to chaos that calm feels empty. This is the final suspense. Can they accept stability without self-sabotage? Can they sit in stillness without manufacturing intensity? The universe watches silently, because only when peace no longer feels boring does alignment truly approach. Peace, when it finally settles into the bones of a rare soul, feels almost unreal. After years of emotional storms, dramatic endings, and passionate beginnings that dissolved into silence, calmness feels like standing in a wide-open field after surviving a war. There is no noise, no urgency, no desperate longing pulling at the chest. At first, this stillness feels suspicious. The rare soul wonders if they have become numb, if they have lost their ability to feel deeply. But what has truly happened is integration. The shadow is no longer an enemy lurking in the unconscious. It has been acknowledged, faced, and embraced. And when the shadow is integrated, love no longer needs to arrive as chaos to feel meaningful. This is when the universe begins its quiet orchestration. The right person does not appear as a lightning strike. There are no overwhelming fireworks designed to blind the senses. Instead, there is recognition, a subtle familiarity that does not trigger anxiety. The rare soul notices something unusual. They are not trying to impress. They are not performing. They are not shrinking or expanding to secure affection. They are simply present. And in that presence, they feel seen without being dissected, valued without being idolized. This connection does not awaken fear. It awakens steadiness. And steadiness, to a previously wounded heart, feels revolutionary. Dark psychology teaches that we often confuse adrenaline with love. The rare soul once believed that obsession meant depth, that longing meant destiny. Now they recognize that true alignment does not activate survival instincts. It does not demand proof or sacrifice identity. The right person does not attempt to control, manipulate, or dominate. There are no subtle power games, no strategic withdrawals to provoke pursuit. Communication is clear. Effort is mutual. The connection grows slowly, like roots strengthening beneath the soil rather than flames erupting into the sky. It may even feel less dramatic than past loves, but it feels safe. And safety allows intimacy to expand without fear. Yet even here, the universe offers one final psychological test. The rare soul must allow themselves to receive. After years of self-reliance and emotional independence, vulnerability feels foreign again. It is easier to be strong alone than to open the heart once more. There is a quiet voice that whispers, "Do not relax completely. Remember what happened before." But this time, awareness does not lead to withdrawal. It leads to conscious choice. The rare soul understands that pain is always a possibility, but they no longer live in anticipation of it. They choose connection not because they need completion, but because they desire partnership. In Jungian terms, this is the union of opposites within the psyche. The inner masculine and feminine energies find balance. The rare soul no longer seeks someone to rescue their wounded child or validate their hidden insecurities. Those parts have been nurtured internally. As a result, they attract someone who meets them as an equal, not as a savior or project. The relationship becomes a mirror of wholeness rather than a battlefield of unresolved trauma. Conflicts, when they arise, are addressed with communication instead of manipulation. Disagreements do not threaten abandonment. They deepen understanding. Looking back, the rare soul begins to understand what the universe was truly doing all along. The betrayals were not curses. The loneliness was not rejection. The delays were not neglect. Every painful chapter forced them inward. Every disappointment dismantled illusions. Every silence strengthened self-trust. Had the right person arrived earlier, the rare soul would have loved from insecurity, from fear, from need. They would have clung too tightly or tolerated too little. The preparation was necessary because rare love requires rare stability. The universe was not withholding happiness, it was building capacity. And now, when love finally stands before them, it does not feel like salvation. It feels like alignment. There is no urgency to possess or to promise eternity in a single breath. There is simply the quiet certainty that two whole individuals have met at the right level of consciousness. The rare soul no longer asks why they suffered. They understand. They see that the journey was never about finding someone. It was about becoming someone capable of sustaining what they once prayed for. And if you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.